Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, Ms. Sanabosa, I noticed in your ranking comment you gave me credit for being David. I hope he supports the legislation. He and I are good friends, but I want to thank you for hosting me and for allowing me to speak at today's hearing. As a lifelong outdoorsman and current vice chair of the Congressional Sportsmen's Caucus, I'm honored to be here today to discuss H.R. 2591, modernizing the Pittman-Robertson Fund for Tomorrow's Needs Act of 2017. If enacted, 2591 would provide national, broad-based support to state fish and wildlife agencies to develop, guide, and enhance collective efforts to recruit hunters and recreational shooters, all while continuing to protect the natural resources we enjoy. As you all are aware, through a system of user-pay public benefits, Pittman-Robertson is the foundation of wildlife conservation funding in the United States. Since it was first enacted in 1937, the Pittman-Robertson Wildlife Restoration Fund has collected over $8 billion from hunters and recreational shooters to be used by states to fund wildlife conservation efforts, habitat acquisition and management, public access to lands, hunter education, and shooting ranges affiliated with hunter safety programs. These funds are collected from an excise tax on firearms, ammunition, and archery equipment and are matched by the state with funds from licenses paid by both hunters and recreational shooters. Effectively, Pittman-Robertson creates a direct link between those that hunt and participate in sportsman activities and the health of the resources needed to expand and enhance those opportunities. However, in recent years, the increasing urbanization and suburbanization of our population has made it more difficult for the public to participate in hunting and recreational shooting. Correspondingly, the average age of Americans purchasing hunting licenses is steadily rising. This has a significant ripple effect not only on the key federal funding models that support conservation of fish and wildlife, but also on the base of support for our public lands and on thoughtful natural resources policy. With no federal mandate or any increase in existing user fees or taxes, H.R. 2591 will preserve the current user-pay public benefit funding of wildlife conservation for generations to come, while further expanding the flexibility of the states to make decisions that are best fit for them. Specifically, H.R. 2591 would clarify that a purpose of the Pittman-Robertson Fund is to extend public relations assistance to the states for the promotion of hunting and recreational shooting. However, to ensure that traditional wildlife conservation remains the primary focus of the Pittman-Robertson, H.R. 2591 puts a cap on the PR funds that can be used for public relations. Finally, H.R. 2591 would expand the multi-state conservation grant program by providing an additional $5 million per year for making hunter and recreational recruitment project grants that promote a national hunting and shooting sport recruitment program. This legislation simply provides the authority for existing funds to be used on programs that will help ensure participation in hunting and recreational shooting, thus securing the funding base long into the future. It's important to note that H.R. 2591 does not mandate how Pittman-Robertson funds must be spent. The discretion to determine the amount, if any, of wildlife restoration funds spent on hunter recruitment and recreational shooter recruitment activities would remain entirely with the state Fish and Wildlife Agency. Conservation organizations and state wildlife agencies alike have long advocated for increased flexibility in Pittman-Robertson fund spending. I've received letters from numerous state agencies and conservation organizations that advocate in favor of this legislation, H.R. 2591. Mr. Chairman, if possible, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent that these letters be entered into the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, Subcommittee members, it's now more important than ever to provide state and territorial wildlife agencies the flexibility and tools needed to recruit, retain, and reactivate hunters and recreational shooters. In doing so, not only will we create a sustainable base of sportsmen and women in our future generations, but we will ensure that funding for wildlife conservation will keep pace with the demands of our increasingly urbanized national population. Again, I'd like to extend my sincerest thank you to all of the subcommittee for allowing me to speak today on behalf of this legislation, and with that, I yield back.